26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional...
Yes. Karibuni, asante sana. We are glad that you could join us this morning. Thank you very much. Naomba tuzidi kupiga makofi. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana. Joining us this morning, we have Honorable C.S. Elliott. Thank you very much. I think we can rise. We remain standing for the national East African anthem.
Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tulilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Let's take our seats as we have our opening prayer led by Mr. Wycliffe.
Let us believe and pray. Almighty God and Father, we come before you this morning to honor your name and thank you. To thank you for this gathering, to thank you for the gift of life, to thank you for the gift of our chief gift and all the guests present. We thank you for our speakers today. We thank you for all the individuals who have made this day a possibility. We pray, Almighty God, that you bless us and you guide us throughout the day. As we begin, Father, bless us and bless the end of the day. Lord, we trust that you are the protector, and therefore we pray for safety. We pray for protection to us who are present here, and we pray that you protect all our families, all our friends who are here, who are at home, and to all our children who have reported back to school. Lord, guide our speakers today, give them wisdom, and give them the kindness of heart to share with us, so that we are blessed with the knowledge of the subject today. God, for all the government officials present who you have given the mandate to serve this great nation and to serve the people of Kenya, bless them, continue granting them strength and wisdom and kindness of heart. As we begin our program today, Almighty God, and by your own divine anointing and in your holy name, I bless this gathering in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I pray and I trust.
Amen. Mabibi na mabwana hamjamboni. Good morning. My name is Wanjohe Njoroge, and I'm honored to be your MC for today. Joining us, we have the presence of Honorable C.S. Eliud Owalo, who is a Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Information Technology and Digital Economy. We also have Honorable P.S. Engineer John Tanui, Principal Secretary, State Department of ICT and Digital Economy. And we also have our DC, Madam Immaculate Kasait, Data Commissioner, Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to talk about our data protection under the theme, Promoting Data Privacy in a Digitally Transformed Economy. We all know that every single day we leave data footprints everywhere we go, including here today. So how do we guarantee the safety, the protection, and the privacy of that data? This is the conversation we are having today. We are convened here by the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. This is a personal data regulatory office established pursuant to the Data Protection Act of 2019. The mandate of the office, as derived from the Data Protection Act of 2019, includes regulate the processing of personal data, ensure that the processing of the personal data of a data subject is guided by the principles set out in Section 25 of the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establish the legal institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and provide data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data from processing that is not in accordance with the Act. This information is available on their website, and I would encourage you to visit their website. The first session, we have the opening ceremony, and we have the chief guest, and I would humbly request them to come to the front so that we officially open this conversation. Honorable CS, may I humbly request that you take the front seats. Honorable PS and Madam Immaculate. Thank you very much. To open this conversation and this day for us is none other than Madam Immaculate Kasait, the Data Commissioner, Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. She is the first Data Commissioner and an inspiration to very many young girls who desire to follow her footpath. Madam, karibu. A round of applause as she comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, moderator. Our CS, Elio Dualo, our PS, Engineer Tanui, Registrar of Political Parties, industry CEOs who are here today, industry chiefs, and our stakeholders. Good morning. I really want to appreciate all of you for making time to attend today's session, and we do not take it for granted as an office. I know our CS is pressed for time. I know we are all here also to listen in terms of the panel discussion. So I'll go straight to a brief presentation today in terms of why we are here and what is expected on the day ahead of us. CS, with your permission, just a quick introduction on why a presentation on international, this event occurs every year, and it has been happening for the last 40 years, is as a result of what we call, when we speak globally, the Convention 108. And in January 1981, the first binding international treaty addressing the need for protection of personal data. In addition to that, CS and PS, the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe in what we call the GDPR came into force. And also in Africa, we have 33 countries that have 33 countries out of 54 in Africa that have data protection regulations or any form of regulatory framework. Bwana CS, under the African Union, we have the Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data, what we call the Malabo Convention, which provides for electronic transaction and private and cybersecurity. Recently, Bwana CS and PS, we have the African Union Data Protection Framework, which was adopted by the African Executive Council in February 2022. In Kenya, the Constitution of Kenya, of course, guarantees the right to privacy under Article 31 and under Article 35 to ensure that every person's information that is collected can either be deleted if it's untrue or misleading in any form. Under the Data Protection Act, we have the enactment of the Data Protection Act, and the office was established in 2020, and the Data Commissioner appointed in 2020. The mandate of the office, we are responsible for regulating the processing of personal data. We are also responsible for processing personal data and to ensure that it's done in accordance to the principles set out in Section 25 of the Act. We protect the privacy of individuals, the establishment of legal and institutional framework. We provide for data subject their rights and remedies. The functions of the office are, one, we are responsible for enforcement. We are responsible for registration of data controllers. We are responsible for conducting assessment, investigation, oversight. We are responsible for promoting self-regulation, inspection, international cooperation, research, and amongst other things. Our vision is to enhance trust and build transparency of data protection in Kenya. We also have a mission to protect personal data in Kenya through compliance, enforcement, public awareness, and institutional capacity development. Our CS and PS and invited guests, in the last 2 years, we've been able to operationalize the office, set up a strategic plan, have a strategic plan, have regulations in force, have HR instrument, and guidance notes. In addition, we've been able to automate the registration process through the ERP system and an online registration system, which will be officially launched tomorrow. We have been able to have the complaints system set up. So far, we have issued 2 enforcement notices, issued 1 penalty notice, issued 2 determination on complaints launched, and of course, developed an ADR framework. In as far as compliance is concerned, we've been able to prepare advisories for different institutions, commenced audit for 40 digital lenders, developed a data protection training curriculum. At international cooperation, as an office, upon establishment, we have recently joined the Global Privacy Assembly. We are a member of the African Network of Data Protection Authority. We are members of the Common Thread Network. On awareness, we continue to create awareness and have held over 50 sensitization workshops. What we are looking forward to is the development of sector-specific guidelines, that is in the agriculture sector, health sector, education sector, and fintechs, accreditation of institutions to conduct data protection training, rolling out of the services of at the region, awareness creation, Kenya becoming a member of Convention 108. Yes, it's important to emphasize that data protection is not here to stifle innovation. Indeed, data protection is at the center of the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza government. Data protection lays the foundation that indeed, if your data is secure, then we will have more investment. We are able to enhance our digital economy and be able to actually increase the number of people who are employed or who are going to self-employed, and therefore, as a result, ensure that everyone's information is secure. In addition, we'll also be able to uphold a culture on data protection, and we'll also be able to walk this talk in terms of ensuring that the ecosystem is secure and make Kenya a more attractive place in as far as investment is concerned. We would like to encourage more data controllers and data processors to register with us and also work with us this journey of data protection. And with those brief remarks, I now take this opportunity to invite our PS to make his remarks and then invite the CS. Thank you very much.
Our Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication and Digital Economy, Honorable Eliud Towalo, the Data Commissioner, Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, Ms. Immaculate Kasait, Commissioner, Political Parties Registration, my colleagues, the several CEOs who are here, and all of you, good morning. First, I want to express my pleasure in joining in this year's International Data Privacy Day that focuses not only in taking stock of the milestones the ministry and by extension our country has taken towards the realization of data protection. CS, on the onset, the State Department of ICT and the Digital Economy wishes to really thank you for finding time for this very important International Day, especially as our country takes a journey to really build a digital government and in the end to realize a digital country. Secondly, allow me to really appreciate the work done by the Data Commissioner, Immaculate Kasait, and our team for making it possible for government, academia, the private sector, and the general public who are here today to have such a platform to discuss on how to safeguard personal data as envisioned in the Constitution and even actualized by the Data Protection Act of 2019 and Data Protection Regulations of 2021. The State Department for ICT and the Digital Economy will continue to support the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner to ensure she is facilitated and ensure she can access the necessary funding and support from the entire government in ensuring our country ranks top in matters of data protection and data privacy. This is a key prerequisite for us in the journey of building the digital economy. The Digital Economy Blueprint of 2019, which is aligned to the Vision 2030, envisions a digitally empowered citizenry living in a digitally enabled society. It also highlights the significant work already happening across government, private sector, civil society, the businesses, academia. It further identifies further action required to ensure all Kenyan citizens and residents thrive in a global digital economy through its 5 pillars. That's the digital government, digital businesses, infrastructure, innovation-driven entrepreneurship, and digital skills and values. Ladies and gentlemen, today's schedule of activities includes a panel of discussions on data protection in the provision of government services and will provide a platform for key sector players to commit in ensuring compliance with data protection principles as set out in our data protection laws, as well as discussing on how private sector players can leverage on personal data to grow the economy while being compliant with the data protection legal frameworks. Our CS, lastly, the panel discussions will also explore the values of personal data and compliance in the growth of the digital and the creative economy, which is one of the key commitments by our government and being led by our ministry. As I conclude, I wish to really thank the Data Commissioner and our team, especially now it's just within 2 years, and they have been able to build the necessary structures and to be able to, even for the first time, enable us as a country to have such a day to be able to converse on this very important topic. Finally, CS, as we embarked on the big journey of moving government services to digital platforms and ensuring that all our transactions move to a digital platform where we will experience a paperless government, we have so much to do. And the two concerns which we will be seeking further your leadership as we address is the cybersecurity component, data protection, and data privacy. So with that, it's my great pleasure to invite our CS Eliud Owalo. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I was having a conversation with the data commissioner there. I was trying to find out why the delegates don't look very happy. Could it be that they don't want data to be protected? Otherwise, this is a great day. I'm glad to be here. My peers for ICT and the digital economy, Engineer Tanui, the Data Commissioner, Madam Kasait, Chief Executive Officers drawn from both the public and the private sector, government officials present, distinguished stakeholders, the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm delighted to join you on this 42nd anniversary of the International Privacy Day. This is indeed a very important day in the digital and technology space in the world. We in Kenya are pleased to join the rest of the world in marking this day. As you are aware, this day was first celebrated in Kenya in the year 2021, and it has since become an annual event on our ICT calendar. It gives us the opportunity to take stock of the gaps and gains in safeguarding the people's right to privacy and data protection in particular. On this day, we also reflect on how better the government could continue providing seamless e-government services while also complying with both the statutory requirements and principles of personal data protection. Our commitment, therefore, as government ladies and gentlemen, is to digitalize all government services and with a view to enhancing service delivery to our people, to eliminate the traditional red tape of government bureaucracy, but in the same vein, correspondingly ensure that all data that come into our position as government in the course of that process is secure, remains private to the extent possible, and is protected. We must protect the people's right to privacy as a fundamental human right, which of course is enshrined in our 2010 constitutional dispensation. Ladies and gentlemen, as the parent ministry, we laud the efforts and initiatives put in place by the Office of the Commissioner of the Data Protection in executing the mandate as articulated in the Data Protection Act 2019 and as restated by the Commissioner of Data Protection, Ms. Immaculate Kasait. One thing that we need to have a delicate balancing act on, ladies and gentlemen, is how to reconcile or align the two perspectives of the Data Protection Act on one hand and the Access to Information Act. Because the Access to Information Act 2016 stipulates that every citizen has got the right to access any information. Yet the Data Protection Act stipulates that integral components of data must remain private and confidential. So there's a delicate balancing act in that regard. And I believe that in the course of discussions that we are going to have during the parallel deliberations, some of the issues emanating therefrom by way of value proposition moving forward will be clearly articulated. The aim of the Data Protection Day, ladies and gentlemen, is to raise awareness in government and within the business community, as well as among development partners, academia, and the general public about the importance of protecting the privacy of their personal information. This is especially so during this age when digital technology has spread to all corners of the globe and in all spheres of our economy. Today's event, therefore, reminds us of possible opportunities for collaboration among government agencies, financial institutions, telecommunication companies, academia, non-profit entities, privacy professionals, and educators on matters of enhancing personal data protection. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's celebration is commemorated under the theme of promoting data protection in a digitally transformed economy. As you are aware, as government, we are embarking on a very, very ambitious program of digitizing all government records on one hand, while correspondingly digitalizing government services on the other. We envisage that, for example, in the next 6 months, with the necessary or requisite infrastructure, ICT infrastructure in place, we shall have onboarded onto our eCitizen platform a total of 5,000 services. So we look forward to a situation where we will be having a paperless government. As we pursue this, we have to simultaneously think of the integral component of data protection and data privacy, and of course, by extension, cyber security. As a ministry, we are open to ideas, and we have already initiated such stakeholder fora so that we get views from integral stakeholder components by way of value proposition as to how our digitalization of services and digitization of records should be anchored on an enabling policy, legal, and regulatory framework that does not compromise both cyber security on one hand and data protection and data privacy on the other. So we look forward to working with you in that regard. This theme, ladies and gentlemen, emphasizes the need for us to create an environment that allows safeguarding of data for every citizen and for every enterprise and organization that has digital access and the capability to participate and thrive in the digital economy. Our national economic blueprint, the Kenya Vision 2030, has been accelerated through 6 core pillars of the Kenya Kwanza plan, namely agriculture, micro, small, and medium enterprises, housing and settlement, healthcare, the digital superhighway, and the creative economy, and of course, an enabling environment from a legal and policy perspective. We must therefore seize the significant socio-economic opportunities that digital technologies bring us today. We are witnessing a digital revolution where robotics, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and quantum computing all converge to enable us participate in the 4th industrial revolution. Emerging technologies go hand in hand with the need for capacity building and upscaling of the skills set for our vibrant youth, so that they too can actively contribute towards the growth of the economy and, of course, for their own personal, professional, and economic growth. So the youth are indeed our future. And for the youth to attain that desired future, we have to leverage on technology or technological platforms. Upskilling them, therefore, for their participation in the economy contributes to helping Kenya to realize our goals to be a middle-income economy. We envisage, ladies and gentlemen, that as a country, we have got the capacity and capabilities from a technological perspective to position our country as the digital hub of Africa. And that if we leverage on technology, we can also position Kenya effectively in the global marketplace by way of comparative advantage. Ladies and gentlemen, my ministry is committed to building the infrastructure for technology and putting in place vibrant legislative and policy frameworks that will encourage investments in the ICT sector. Similarly, we have got initiatives in place to strengthen the digital economy through education, skills and training, establishment of innovation hubs for the development of skills, talents, and incubation of startups. By way of ICT infrastructure, ladies and gentlemen, we envisage that we will be able to roll out to the tune of 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable, so that those parts of the country which hitherto had not been effectively enabled by way of ICT infrastructure will be able to acquire the same. We are also embarking on ambitious process of providing 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots, so that as we embark on the process of digitalization of government services, we are not just looking at the process of how we can lower the cost of data, but where we can as government, we are ensuring that members of the public can access internet for free. So we are going further again to set up 1,450 village digital hubs. In each and every ward in this country, we will establish and operationalize a digital hub to enable our youth get optimal levels of ICT skills and leverage on the potential of digital jobs that we have in the marketplace. Further, ladies and gentlemen, my ministry will ensure that as we embark on this digitalization process, work hand in hand with all integral stakeholder segments in the industry, if not the sector. And in this vein, as we roll out the ambitious program of attaining the envisaged 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable, we expect the private sector to play a role in that. When it comes to the establishment of the digital hotspots, we will partner with the private sector as well. We also intend, by way of value proposition, to restructure or revitalize the operations of the Postal Corporation of Kenya. We will leverage on technology to do this. We believe that the direction or the single most critical success factor for revitalization of Posta is e-commerce. And then, of course, we have got certain integral interventions we want to put in place within the space of the Kenya News Agency and the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate International Data Privacy Day, we should ask ourselves a few fundamental but also imperative questions. What is the value of data protection in agriculture, for example? The Office of the Commissioner of Data Protection will issue an advisory to safeguard personal data during the registration of farmers to ensure that government distributes subsidized fertilizers and other agricultural inputs to the target farmers across the country. Government has embarked on the process of registering farmers, and when you introduce anything new in the marketplace, there'll always be suspicions. Again, those guidelines will be issued shortly by the Office of the Data Commissioner so that we don't, to allay any fears that may exist among the Kenyan public. The other question is, what is the value of data protection in transforming the micro, small, and medium enterprises economy? The Office of the Data Commissioner will issue advisory to financial and telecommunication institutions involved in the rollout of the Hustler Fund to ensure that the processing of loans is in full conformity to the Data Protection Act 2019. You are aware that we have rolled out or established and operationalized the Hustler Fund, and we are leveraging on technological platforms, both for purposes of disbursement and also repayment of the loans. But again, we want that to be anchored on a sound data protection and privacy framework. What is the value of data protection in fully publicly financing primary healthcare? In our Kenya Kwanza manifesto, universal healthcare is a standalone thematic area, ladies and gentlemen, and we are indicating unequivocally that we are going to have an integrated, digitally enabled health management system. As and when you do this, how do you ensure that private health information, crucial information of the Kenyan public is not compromised? Again, the Data Protection Commissioner will issue an advisory to NHIF, health facilities, and medical insurance companies to ensure that the privacy of Kenyans is safeguarded during the processing and even storage of such sensitive information. In terms of storage, just for purposes of clarity, we already have a fully fledged data storage facility at the Konza Technopolis, and we are encouraging ministries, government departments, and the private sector to consider exploiting that opportunity to ensure that the data that is in their possession is stored in both a secure and place in conformity to the statutory and regulatory framework. The other question, ladies and gentlemen, what is the value of data protection in digital superhighway and the creative economy? Again, the Office of the Data Commissioner will soon be issuing an advisory to all government agencies undertaking digitization of government records to ensure that automation of government services undertaken within the provisions of the Data Protection Act 2019. In addition, the office will play a critical role in enhancing national security and especially on data localization. The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner will issue guidelines on data location, especially data on Kenyan citizens, ladies and gentlemen, so that we don't compromise the security of the country from any perspective as we embark on this process of digitizing records and digitalizing government services. I'm informed that this conference has attracted both local and global brands. Partnerships between government, regulators, private sector, and development partners is a key ingredient. And if we are to nurture an environment that fosters long-term policies for the creation of capacity building programs in ICT and digital economy, effective stakeholder alliances and partnerships in this regard is imperative, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to thank the Data Commissioner and the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner in particular for organizing this very, very important forum to celebrate the International Privacy Day and to reflect on the journey towards the realization of its objectives in Kenya. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I would really wish that we focus on the theme of data protection, data privacy, and of course, security of cyberspace in the course of our panel deliberations and any group discussions that we may have in the course of this event. We look forward to working with you as a ministry in ensuring that Kenya is not just an empowered country from an economic perspective while leveraging on technology, but that Kenya becomes a digitized and digitalized country. From where we sit as government, we believe that in the not too distant future, we will have a paperless economy. We will leverage on technology from all facets of our interventions in the marketplace, be it from an economic or social perspective. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thank you. Deserves a bigger round of applause. Listening to the CS, I see hope, I see promise, I see commitment, but I also see work that needs to be done. He has reminded us that data privacy is actually a human right enshrined in our Constitution. He's also reminded us that of government's commitment to digitize all services, ensuring that we have a paperless government process. He's also reminded us of the commitment to ensuring that we reduce the digital divide. He said that the government has committed to connecting 100,000 or laying 100,000 kilometers of fiber cable, ensuring that we have 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots and 1,450 digital hubs. But the CS has also raised questions that we have to discuss and deliberate. Have you ever thought that agriculture is linked to data protection? Has it ever occurred to you? He's also told us about the private health information. Every single day you go to the doctor, you leave information. How is the handling of that information, and is the security and the protection of that data guaranteed? He has reminded us of the digital superhighway. In fact, I was smiling because it's never hit me that I actually leave my data when I'm using the digital superhighway. But what guarantee do I have of my data protection? This is not just questions. Today we are gathered here to deliberate, yes, to raise tough questions, to have an honest conversation, but to also come up with the solutions. And he's reminded us of the national security when it comes to data protection. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to sincerely thank Bwana CS, Bwana PS, and also Madam DC. I think that has been an incredible opening to our day today. Thank you very much. Allow me now to introduce the second session, which is most important. We are gathered here to talk about data protection, data security. And I think it's important we allow our CS to... Thank you very much, sir. We have 3 breakout sessions, as I had told you earlier. These breakout sessions are there because we must contribute to this conversation. Data protection, data security affects each one of us. A good example is that before we came in, we registered, we left our data here. So literally, our data footprints are scattered all over the place. Even when you're going into a building, what do? You register. You leave your phone number, you leave your ID number. Do you know how powerful the 2 combinations are? Somebody can even go and claim to be you, right? So how do those buildings that are asking for our data, 1, protect our data, but 2, guarantee that they are protecting our data? So the first conversation, the first panel, which will be here, and I request the 2 ladies to come to the front. The conversation will happen here in Savo. We will be looking at government's commitment to ensure compliance with data protection. This is a sector-specific approach to data protection. We are focusing on 2 areas, education and the health sector. The CS has reminded us of our data protection. When you go to hospital, you leave your data. What's a guarantee that your data will not be used to make medicine or something like that without your authorization? So this will be here, and it will be moderated by Madam Rose Mosero. She is in charge. She is the Deputy Data Commissioner in charge of compliance. The next panel will be in Aberdares. This is a conversation on service providers, commitment to ensure compliance with data protection, the collaborative approach from various service providers. So this will be moderated by the Deputy Data Commissioner, Mr. Oscar Otieno. He is in charge of complaints, investigation, and enforcement. We call it the CIE. The next conversation will be in Lenana, and we are talking about key data handlers' commitment to ensure compliance with data protection, the collaborative approach from the various key data handlers. I need us to focus on the collaborative effort, because government cannot achieve this alone. The 100 kilometers fiber optic cables will not be laid by government alone. It will have to be public-private partnerships. So for us to smoothly transition, and I'll request the ladies to come to the front. So this is SAVO. The team looking at government's commitment will be left here. The team looking at the service providers will go to Abadeas. That's the lady. She will be in that corner. Then she will guide you. After we've all assembled in that corner, she will guide us to the room so that we have smooth transition. Then we have those looking at key data handlers' commitment will go to Lenana. This wonderful lady will be in that corner, and you will assemble, and then she will guide us. Those going to Lenana will leave first, and then as soon as those are done, we'll move to Aberdare. Now, when it comes to time, we only have 45 minutes. We all have to reconvene here so that we can report back. Remember, we are looking for solutions. We are looking for bottlenecks. Why are we not where we want to go? And what are the possible solutions? So we have to come back and report back, and the moderator will be charged with the responsibility of reporting back. Make sure you contribute. Ladies and gentlemen, the hashtag is #DataProtectionKE. Are we excited to contribute to this conversation? So I hope to see you back here at 11:46. But before we leave, I would want to humbly request the CS and the PS and Madam DC to first leave, and then we can, the rest of us can leave. Thank you very much. A round of applause as they leave. Asanteni sana. So are we ready with our panels? Do you know what panel we are going to? Come on.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection.
And so, as I've mentioned, we have a wonderful panel. There's a saying that goes that there are some individuals that do not need introductions. A great man or a great woman doesn't need introductions, and before us are some of those, but just to allow for the people who haven't really interacted with our panelists, I'll allow our panelists to just say a brief introduction about themselves. Obviously forgoing Madam Kasait, because I think we all know her. She's the reason that we're here. So Engineer Obam from the National Communications Secretariat, just a minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Rose, Madam DC, and my fellow panelists. You are probably wondering what's an engineer doing on the platform here, talking about data protection. I think even engineers need privacy of their information protected. But to my introduction, I work at the National Communications Secretariat, which is the institution that provides policy advisory to the Ministry of Information, Communication and Digital Economy. So the initial stages of developing frameworks, we are involved at that stage in an advisory capacity. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And what Engineer Obam hasn't said about himself is majority of the laws and policies in the ICT sector were actually spearheaded by him as a chairperson of most of the task forces and committees, but he might be a bit too shy to say that. Madam Kasait needs no introduction, so I'll move on to the next panelist.
Thank you very much, Ross. So my name is John Olukuru. I'm the head of data science and analytics of Strathmore University, and I also lead on a number of programs, especially executive programs on data science and big data. So we'll work on a number of projects. I was just happy to see the CS highlight the health sector, agriculture, and digital economy. So a number of things that maybe we'll be able to see how we can share that. And being a university, we realize training is the pillar of creating awareness in data privacy and data protection. It is our responsibility.
Thank you so much for that, and welcome, Dr. Bore.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Bore. I work at KNH. I work in the clinical data, the medical data unit that is domiciled in health information. So I basically handle clinical data, all the clinical data. So when I listened to the CS very well, I think he kept talking about the healthcare sector data. So I'm sure we're going to have a very good conversation about how your healthcare data is managed and the safety of your data. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome. And the last but not least, Ms. Tenderi.
Thank you, moderator, and my fellow panelists and the audience. My name is Clifford Nderi. I'm in charge of ICT security at the University of Nairobi. And you realize, being one of the premier universities within the country, we handle a lot of students' data, a lot of personal data, so not just current, even past and or future students. So it is of critical importance that we bring in our perspective now to data protection. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for that. Now, on to the questions. And I'll just give a brief introduction, although, again, as I said, I'm very fortunate to have been here, and the Cabinet Secretary has mentioned a lot of the government's agenda with respect to digitization. So I'll go firstly to Madam Kasait. Obviously, with the agenda digitization of government services, this can bring a number of benefits to Kenya, including improved efficiency, transparency, accessibility, as well as utilization of the data that we collect. Some of the services can reduce the time and resources that are required to complete administrative tasks, but from a regulatory perspective, you've been in this office 2 years, you have interacted with government. What are some of the regulatory aspects and challenges that you've seen, as well as the advantages that you've seen from a regulatory perspective with respect to digitization of government services?
Thank you, Rose. And how much time do I have? You know, I might...
Limits to 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Just to take the advantages, of course, the CS has talked about the government projection. I don't need to go into that. That government is keen to increase efficiency. And I like to give the example, even of us, on registration. If we had embarked on a registration that was manual-based, it would have meant of the 1900 registration data controllers and data processors, which is a very simple process. We require less than 5 documents. Would be having, imagine, 5 times 1900 documents, stacks of documents in our office. Soon we're looking for a warehouse. I have nothing against people who are specializing in paper printing and warehousing. But imagine what that would mean. So in terms of efficiency, that is what digitization will do. It increases efficiency. And there are examples given of countries like Estonia in terms of what that happens. 2, in terms of you're able to share information across government in terms of making decisions. So those are the advantages of automating processes, the digital superhighway, the government agenda in as far as digitization is concerned. What are the things we've seen from where we sit? One of the things we've seen, and I recently just posted on our LinkedIn, what are the pitfalls on data protection. One is there's an assumption that data protection is private sector based, not government based. That's the assumption. Yet it cuts across. It's supposed to be 4-2. Some of the challenges is data protection. We are not putting enough resources. We are tending to think that data protection is an ICT function, yet it's a governance function, just like audit. We need to do introspective and begin looking at data protection as a governance issue so that when you resource it, it's reporting directly to the board, and then it is able to be resourced in terms of human resource, it's able to be resourced in terms of being able to do your audit. That way, when you resource it, then your data protection officer becomes the champion and the person who is able to identify where the gaps are. Three, if you allow me, Rose, there is no, people are not being proactive. We take a laid back do we say, let's wait and see whether the data commissioner is going to come for us. Yet we forget the flip side of it. Our role as a data protection commission is to protect the rights of a data subject. And the data subject, we are having that conversation with our people, they may not realize what's the benefit. Because it's very attractive to share my information with a store somewhere, because they give me discounts. The more I share I give my information to the app for a specific store, the more I get discounts. That's the attraction. So why do you want to protect my information? It doesn't benefit in me in any way. What we forget, if this information was to leak, this particular data subject is discriminated against as an easy way. The information leaks and ends up in the dark web. They are trolled on the internet. In some cases, could lead to suicide. And apart from that, their decisions are affected by machines. If you have machine learning and AI only without having human intervention, it could make a decision about me as a data subject without analyzing what are the intricacies around what I'm doing. So you see, if we are not complying, we are then exposing the data subject. And three, most importantly, because it's got to speak to private sector, think about what it means. And I say, you might look at yourself as a small SME, but you're forgetting in today's world, your client, many times people who are doing shipment of simple things, I sell my things online, but my customers are in Kisumu. I'm based in Nairobi. For me to be able to get you as simple as a makeup kit to Kisumu, I will need to collect your data. I will need to go to a logistics bus which is delivering. They will have to transport. In that process, I collect your personal information. When your information, what will that happen? What about if you have tourists coming to this country and they come from a European country? In the unfortunate event that your business, which was looking upward trajectory, leaks or the information is breached for a European citizen, you will be held accountable. What does this mean for you who was doing a tour agency company and getting very good clients from Europe, and then suddenly that goes vamos because you did not put in place mechanism to protect the information? There is a very close link between what you do in your business, how you're projecting in terms of access of advancing your business, how you relate with the other world, whether Kenya, Europe, or the Americans or Asian country. So it's up to us to make sure that this system is safe, because then it helps us enhance our businesses. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just moving from that, you've spoken about the information that is collected, how to protect it. I might ambush Engineer Obam just a little bit, but Engineer, you've been here and with the Ministry of ICT and with NCS through the processes of developing policies. You've seen the open data platform come into place. You've seen the Data Protection Act come into place. You were part of the development of it. The data protection regulations, you're part of the development of it. But what is, from a policy perspective, how do we ensure that we're safeguarding personal data with respect to digitization of government services, but also taking into account the aspects of open data as well?
Thank you, Rose. First, let me just acknowledge that the government has done a lot in terms of ensuring that we have this framework in place. from the constitution to the enactment of the law to the regulations. And even if you look at the National ICT Policy of 2020, the emphasis is on efficient public service delivery, but therein also there's a lot of emphasis on protection of the personal data that will be collected as we try to provide the services online. Similar to what the CS was saying, digitization of 80% of government services in the next 1 year. That means most of the information that is collected now by individual government institutions will now be online. So the emphasis has always been there. And I think what we see as something that policy needs to emphasize on is what the Data Commission has already talked about. As we put these services online, she alluded to using AI, artificial intelligence, to help process information. But these systems have the potential to actually misrepresent data, personal data that has been corrected. So the next phase maybe of policy making should be looking at how to ensure that AI systems are not just in the hands of a few institutions or a few companies, but it's available maybe to academic institutions, to small organizations that because if you leave it in the hands of a few organizations, it means that the potential for it to be misused or not be used properly increases. Another area that we're looking at as we digitize is a principle of once only usage, so that if you go to one public institution and you have your information collected, you shouldn't go and give similar information to another public institution. I'm sure for those who are, well, this doesn't apply to individuals, but if you go to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, you have to give your ID and all your details. If you go to NHIF, you do the same, NSSF the same, KRA the same. So one of the policy areas that we should be looking at is this once only principle, where data is collected at one point, and then because of digitization, it's available for other government and even private organizations to access it. So what we'll need to do is we'll have to have a very clear platform that enables this cross-usage of data. And I think as we digitize the framework, a common framework for digitization, especially in government, will be important. Last point is that as we do all this, it's important to have, let me call it a unique identifier, so that if information is collected at one point, you are identified once, and that then allows the information with your unique identification to be available. The issue of a digital ID is so critical to the digital economy, and also, I think, in the protection of personal information. Because if we have this one digital unique identifier, then it's easier to know, for the data commissioner to know when the data is breached, because then you can know whose data has been breached, instead of having, I don't know about you, but my name appears in a different permutations, depending on where I have like 5 names. So the first name is normally consistent and the last one. But the middle names are, they keep changing depending on how they were captured. So having a unique identifier helps mitigate against one person having multiple IDs. Rose, I hope I've answered your question. Thank you very much.
You absolutely have, and I think that will be a tremendous success story when we have a unique identifier. I think when doing a survey with a group of people that I know, 1 in 5 actually had correct names across the platform. The other 4 had different permutations or permeations of names, similar to you, Engineer Bum. But let's just move it a little bit and move to the health sector. You collect a lot of information. I know that there's a lot of work that is being done in the health sector to digitize. There are lots of bills, including the e-health bill that is being developed. But just to understand, what are some of the policy directives that can be adopted by government to ensure that data protection is prioritized in the healthcare sector, and what is the best way, I guess, from your experience to actually protect some of this information that is held in the healthcare sector?
All right, thank you so much. Am I audible? I am? All right. So I think the healthcare sector is such, I'm looking for a better word so that, I mean, when you think about data protection, if you think about any sensitive data that comes to your mind is about your illness. There's no one who wants their illness to be known even by their spouses or even by their family members. So we handle very confidential data that is very sensitive, that if it was leaked out, it would cause a lot of embarrassment, stigma, and even depression or even death. So even before the Data Protection Act came into place, we were very cognizant of the fact that we've been handling very sensitive data, of which we've always tried to protect and put measures in place to ensure that confidential data is not leaked out to unauthorized users. So currently what is happening, we are now doing a phased out project of digitizing our records. So considering that our institution is very complex and we cannot digitize over 6 million records in a day, so we've embraced a phased project whereby we started with the comprehensive care clinic, which is completely now digital. We are now rolling out to the nephrology unit. So that one is ongoing. And then after that, once we are done with that, we're going now to roll out at the Cancer Treatment Center and of course other departments. So once, and just like the data commissioner talked about efficiency, when you talk about healthcare, you're talking about the reduction in the turnaround time. By the time you get your diagnostics, still, your diagnosis is made from the diagnostic tests that are done, and then commencement of treatment, so that you can improve outcomes. So if we are in a completely digital world, of course, we will have timely interventions because the clinicians are going to have everything online. So they are going to access our diagnostic tests online and make timely decisions about commencement of treatment. So that is where we are going as an entity, considering that we are the largest hospital in East and Central Africa, and we serve majority of 80% of Kenyans, and mostly we are socio-economically on the lowest of the pillar. So basically, data is very dear in our hearts, because if you look at the mandate of KNH, one of the mandate of KNH is to support research and training. So for us, we can only support research and training by collecting and keeping patient data. But what we are doing first now, so that we can even comply with the the Data Protection Act, is that the first thing that we do is we let our data subjects or our customers sign consent forms, whereby we explain to them why we are collecting their data and why we are keeping the data. For instance, we'll tell them is to facilitate their treatment. And then, of course, for continuity of treatment for the ones with chronic illnesses, and we ask them that they'll allow us to keep the data to support training and research so that it can be used as a basis to improve outcomes. So I was almost very excited when the engineer talked about the once only principle. If we talk about digitizing in the healthcare sector, we need to think about how we can share data among clinical entities, different hospitals sharing data. It's not just enough to digitize records in KNH, and other hospitals also digitize records and keep them in their own entities. So we need to look at platforms like emerging technologies like blockchain technology that will help us. They are immutable because records on a blockchain technology are immutable, means that they cannot be hacked, and it supports shareability among entities. So we can have something like a blockchain, a healthcare blockchain, whereby all digitized records in every in every healthcare entity, they have their records in their database, and then they can now share their records on this healthcare block. It means that now every participant
in this healthcare sector will now have access to that data, so that we do not have patients coming from Kisumu Hospital referred to KNH for further treatment, and when they arrive in KNH, we repeat the test all over again, since the records were already left, they were digitized and left in Kisumu Hospital. If these records were on a healthcare block, it means that once they arrive in KNH, because each of our patients is given a unique identifier, which we call the patient number, the patient unique identifier. So if this patient arrives in KNH, the clinicians will quickly access the data on the block, on the healthcare block, and reduce the turnaround time of carrying out those tests that take even a week or two before you commence on treatment. So in this way, we are going to save on costs on treatment of the patients. We are going to reduce the mortalities that will have come because there was delay in commencement of treatment, and also even reduce morbidity. Because we are going to use this even as a platform to educate our population about how you can stay healthy. So it doesn't just stop at digitizing. We cannot talk about digitizing and we assume that we have achieved it all. No. We need to ask ourselves, how then can we share this data so that the entities, the healthcare entities, can make timely decisions? And of course now, that's what I was just supposing that suppose we embrace blockchain technology. This is something that is being embraced. I remember, if you remember, Professor Ndemo was really spearheading this in the universities, so that we can have this, though we have these fake records, all hacking and what, that will be the single source of truth in the healthcare sector. And I've been very passionate about this. I've written several papers on blockchain technology in the healthcare sector. I've done webinars because I have seen how much patients suffer. When you come and you have the histology result has to be repeated again because you are seen in Eldoret Referral Hospital, you come to KNH, and the whole process takes over and over. So by the time the results are out, you're probably at your deathbed. So we need to look at how technology can enhance service delivery. It's not just digitizing. From digitizing, how do we move next? Yes, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And that we can feel and hear your passion about the healthcare sector, and certainly adopting emerging technologies can be both a solution to the challenges that we're having, but also enhance protections with respect to having traceability with who accesses information using blockchain technology and the like. And just with that, you've mentioned educational institutions, so let's move to the two that we have. I'll start with Dr. Okulu. Sorry, John, yes. You've heard what has been said. Educational institutions collect a lot of information. So I'll just pivot a little bit. Instead of actually talking about the educational institution itself and the trainings that you do, maybe let's look at the research aspect, because a lot of institution, a lot of the work that you do relies on research. So what are some of the things and policy directives as well that have been adopted by government to that can be or should be adopted by government to prioritize education, to assist as well in the balance of innovation, research in the education sector?
Thank you very much, Rose. I always fear being called daktari when there's a proper daktari. Yes, so I think a number of things, but first I was just excited by what she commented about blockchain in health sector. And that took me to what Madam DC mentioned during her opening remarks, that data protection and privacy does not stifle innovation, not at all. The key thing is for us to know we are generating data. Somebody is looking for that data to generate information so that they can learn from that information. At the end of the day, they want to be wise to give you a better experience. So therefore, it's about technology to see how can all that entire process be secure and fruitful. And Dr. I can just tell you that at the moment, it's research, a student writing a theoretical paper on what you're saying, but we are also developing a blockchain solution for the health sector. Oh, wow. And our target is the cancer treatment center. So we got the data. I got a very interesting student who had a personal bad experience. A relative went to India to be taken care of for cancer treatment, came back, and of course, in the process, they could not get the data. So that data sharing process was a challenge. And that's what now enthused her to start this research. So that's something we are working on, and we're very happy to see what we can do on that. Now, another aspect, which I think GIZ, as one of our development partners, are really helping us a lot, in addition to training, to ensure that there is awareness to the data subjects, for people to know what's happening. One key thing they're saying, there are those people out there who might not be able to read that policy. Okay, what's happening out there? So we're trying to see how can we change all these aspects in text into sound. And other than just saying, I'm reading an audiobook, I'm listening to these podcasts and everything, but it's information that has been digested on the data you've put out there to tell you, this is my data, this is how I can be able to utilize it, and this is what can be able to get somewhere. And our main target has been the small-scale farmers. And to try to see, other than them just trying to say, we are going to plant all this here, whatever it could be, they're always going out there looking for extension services. They'll put their data across the platform. Is there a way we can tell them, this data has been put out, is not secure? This data has been put there, it's very secure, but now it can be used for this. It can be used for this other particular aspect. So we're trying to link what they're generating out there and also to give them entire solution at the end of the day. Last year, we launched the Kenya Carbon Calculator, 2050. We're trying to predict where will Kenya be in 2050 when it comes to carbon emission. From the look of aspect, very good. Go get data out there, put into a model, and predict. We came back and realized this data has to be collected. It's coming from the government offices. What are the data protection privacy policies to manage that particular kind of data? And we are working with the UK government to try and see, can we set up secure means of collecting data? And with that, back to what DC, Madam DC and the CS mentioned about digitization. Many people look at technology and digitization, and they even get scared that now this privacy will even be much tougher. I think it will be much more easier because there are more tested solutions of securing our data out there than when you have a hard print or a hard copy out there. So I think digitization, digital transformation is going to be an enabler to data protection and data privacy. I'll stop there for a moment.
Thank you so much for that, John. And it's good to hear the interlink between academia and markets and the work that is being done to roll out solutions based on research. So we'll go to Ms. Nderi, and this is still on the educational front. You mentioned in your introduction that you are one of the, I think University of Nairobi is probably the longest serving university in Kenya. There's a lot of information that you're collecting, lots of information that you collected in the past and will continue to collect to the future. What are some of the things and practicalities that you've experienced in your role with respect to protection? What are some of the things that the government can assist you with in a policy perspective? And fortunately, you're sitting here in a panel with the Data Commissioner. Maybe you can ask for what support that you need from the ODPC as well in your journey into compliance.
Thank you. At the University of Nairobi, as I mentioned earlier, we handle a lot of data from not just the students, including also members of staff, and also external partners that we process. And of course, with the enactment of the Data Protection Act 2019, we are expected now to put that into effect and to handle this data as the Act prescribes. Therefore, challenges you've asked, the magnanimity, the enormous amounts of data pose a lot of challenges because you realize that there is the process of intaking the students, taking them through the process of teaching and learning, and finally, when they're done, graduation. So, of course, there's opportunities therefore of mishandling the data or even misrepresenting. So those might be some of the challenges that we face at the university. However, now the efforts in place to handle that, of course, operationalizing the data protection guidelines. So we are in the process of, starting at the policy level, developing policy and updating the already existing policies that we have so that we encompass now the data protection aspect from the top, and then now it can now be disseminated now to the lower levels where we can now even create awareness to our members of staff, students, most importantly, so that they can be enlightened and they can, take charge where is necessary of their personal data. There's also an aspect of, there is a mention of data protection by design and by default. So moving forward, now the kind of systems that we have that collect data, both online and offline, probably re-engineering them so that the data protection aspect is there from the start. So new systems that may be coming in and also those which are already existing, re-engineering them such that compliance is 100% from this point moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And now just bring it back to the Data Commissioner. You've heard all these wonderful ideas and wonderful work that is being done, educational sector, from the government, from the health sector. I just want to get your reactions with respect to that. I see that you've written a lot of notes. Some of the reactions that you have to that, maybe even just express what is being done by the ODPC with respect to some of these projects that are ongoing and our future work.
I'm hoping Rose will also have an opportunity for the audience to give us their views. Yeah, I've listened in. From a policy perspective framework, I think we are at different levels in organization. I think that's what I understand. There are those who are nascent, still trying to understand what this will mean for the institution, and we are there. I said earlier in my remarks, that's why we set up an awareness with Kenya School of Government. And I've seen some organizations like Kenyatta National Hospital reaching out. So we are available to be able to partner. Every week we get requests. But beyond that, as a commission, realizing that in this space there are many requests. On a weekly basis, we get a minimum of 3 requests on training. And for purposes of harmonizing the training and also making sure that it's regulated, we've come up with an accreditation of people providing training on data protection. Mm-hmm. We have sought policy direction from National Treasury. Once that is out, it's one of the areas that we will actually be making public and actually getting accredited institutions or companies to help us with this journey in as far as awareness is concerned, because part of our key mandate is self-regulation. And looking at the sector, you will see from our program, data protection cuts across, spoken by Waziri and all. 2 is issues of what I hear on sharing. Our sharing of data. I want to say under the Data Protection Act, it actually gives you the framework. Good. 2 issues, it's a right of a data subject on what we call data portability. We haven't tested it at an implementation because we haven't had that complaint. I'm not saying you bring complaints now, because somebody coming to KNH, coming from a dispensary in a different part of the county has a right for you to access the information. Correct. They can, it's what we call data portability. That the information held by one institution on myself should be able to be shared with another institution without any restriction. That's an absolute right under the Data Protection Act. So that exists from a framework perspective. And it's important that our data subjects are aware. They shouldn't spend time replicating because it's lack of efficiency. And I think that's what they are. 2, there's a provision which we have to find guidelines in terms of fast tracking. And I think that for us, what I'm listening in, on what we call a guidance on data sharing code. Taking away from this conference, that would be one of our priority in the medium term, because I'd already said about guidance notes that we have, to come up with a guidance which is endorsed by which is actually the CS on data sharing That is important. And it's not unique to Kenya. Like I said, in Estonia, which is the best example in terms of automation, when you walk into one hospital, you get your information across the board on what your records are. And it will help us, like has been said in academia, to be able to clean up. And the digital identity is one of the things. I'm happy to state that later in the year, Kenya will be hosting a digital identity conference. That will be an opportunity to listen in to what is happening in other parts of Africa in as far as the digital identity space is concerned, because it's a concern that has been raised. From a protection perspective, we have the necessary mechanism to enforce and to make sure your data is safe. One way is compliance by conducting audit. Two, if people are not complying, we have demonstrated we can enforce. So that is what. Three, I spoke about it, is to be able, if you have doubt, seek us out. We continue to give advisories in as far as data protection is concerned. We are here to serve you. We are here to help you walk this journey. Because at the end of the day is to try and make this ecosystem safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And with that, I'll open the space to the floor. If anyone has any questions, we'll just take two in the interest of time. So I can see 2 hands up already. Well, a number, 4 hands. Okay. So we'll start with the one who raised their hands first. We'll start from this side. I don't know whether we've got a mic that we can share it. The lady on the 3rd row. We have an intervention from the Data Commissioner. We will take a number of questions, but please limit to just one and limit your questions to, if you can, just 20 seconds so we can take those many questions. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Madam DC, and all the wonderful panel. I appreciate your comments and for also convening this meeting. My name is Lucy John. I'm from the Kenya Revenue Authority. And as a KRA, we are at the forefront in ensuring that we also comply and also in support of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. We've also made steps, so we are also in this journey with the rest of us. So my concern or the issue that I would like to bring out is on the data sharing initiative. So as it is known, we as the KRA were in the business of supporting government through revenue mobilization. And to do this, we've also gone into expansion of our tax base. And also for us to fulfill our mandate, we've been pushing for collaboration with other government agencies. We've had meetings on data sharing initiatives, but I think for now, the biggest challenge that we've been having is the understanding of what the law actually provides for government, for sharing of data within government. So maybe if we can put more emphasis, and actually I like what Madam DC you've mentioned about having a guideline on how intergovernment agencies, we can be able to share data across government so that we can have a unified set of data, so that the data that is held, for instance, with the NTSA or KPLC is the same data that we as the KRA also are having. So since we are one government, we are one people seeking now to provide exemplary service to the wonderful citizens of this country, I think it is a good initiative to have the guidelines. It will be able to guide us also as we fulfill our mandate. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for that. There was a gentleman on this side who had a question. We'll take his, and then we'll take a few.
Thank you so much to our panelists. My name is Zach Alakonya from the private sector. I have 2 questions. I'll make them very quick.
Just one, please, in the interest of time, and brief. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My first question goes to the once use only principle and how that you juxtapose that with the aspect of consent across multiple purposes. Data protection together with technology appear to be running so fast away from leaving the other industries behind. And when we are talking about once only principle, we need to consider the aspect of consent. How are we making it so simple for people to understand why they are giving the information they are giving and consenting, which is the aspect of informed consent as a principle of data protection. So as much as we are talking about advancing, how then do we simplify consent to be informed consent? Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll take a few questions. So that was particularly for OBAM. So take note in terms of policy for consent. And we'll take one from the lady who's got her hands up at the front. If you would stand up.
Good morning and many thanks to the distinguished panelists. My name is Enid from Ernst & Young. I have a question on education, especially educating the young people or children, because they are very responsive and they're quick adopters of technology. Are there any initiatives to educate them on their rights so that even as they interact with technology at home and at school, their rights are not being infringed upon? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We'll just take another, so the gentleman behind you, and then we'll come to the front.
Good morning. My name is Frederick Endeki from Kenya Medical Training College. And what Dr. has actually aired today, it's very, very important. I'm not actually going to ask a question because KMTC actually is intertwined. It's both education and health. So what she has actually said, to put it in a simple way, and I want us actually to listen to her and her views. Please let's sit with her. When we have health care, when you go to a hospital and then you are treated there, if you are discharged from that hospital and you go to another hospital because for any other reason, your file doesn't go to that other hospital. And so your health charges or the expense that you incur becomes almost double. But if you are able to enlighten our subjects that actually you can move with your file from one hospital to another, that didn't have to happen initially. People never used to do that. But if you can enlighten them now, that actually you can move with your file from hospital A to hospital B so that you don't actually start again interviewing a patient for a disease that was around 5-10 years ago. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. There is a lady at the back and the gentleman at the front, so we'll take the lady first and then the gentleman on the second row, and we'll close for questions.
Thank you. It was excellent presentations to the panel. Thank you. My question is a slight difference to the area. We're extending it to perhaps the insurance and the pension industry, where there's significant amount of data held in respect of members. In terms of providing that sector, that protection and guidance, I think it's needed like yesterday, because the data that's being held is not just data, but it's sensitive personal data. And we're also extending it to minors to an extent. And I think that's something we need to look into, because there's a lot of collaboration. If I look at NHIF, if I look at the medical facilities, they have links with insurance entities, they have links with brokers. There's the whole governance side of the things, there's the whole collaboration side of things. I think we need to look into that as well to see how we can protect the individuals whose data is held by multiple entities. And when you're now talking about data portability, you also need to bring in employers who say, by contract, they're providing you a benefit, so they also have a right to have that info, etc. But then are you infringing then on a data subject? So I think there's some areas there. Thank you.
Thank you. We didn't catch your name.
Shara from Zamara.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the gentleman at the front, just first row.
Good morning. My name is Victor Nyangaresi from the private sector. And my question goes direct to the engineer Daniel and our data commissioner. It goes to you because it's touching the government sector. If you go to the NEA portal, which is a government entity, and try to search the homepage and try to search your ID number, it gives you details which I feel that they violate the data protection. And the data is available to the public. if I read for you, like now I've tried to search my ID number, I'm able to see my employer, my ID number, employment number, my name as they appear in the ID, the gender, date of birth, date of employment, date of exit, and reasons for exit. Now my questions in that regard, first, are you aware as a commission that this critical information is available to the public? Secondly, is it in order that without any security control measures, the public has access to such data? And if you are aware, if in your thinking, is it not data privacy and protection conformity? Do you think that in this scenario, the government is becoming an agent to data privacy or an agent to data phishing, fraud, and crime? Thank you.
Thanks for that. I think we'll take just those questions, but just for clarification, which platform did you mention?
The NEA portal, National Employment Authority.
Okay. Thank you for that. So it looks like majority of the questions are actually to Engineer Obam and the Data Commissioner. So we'll take, Engineer Obam can answer the one-touch policy and the consent and the government thinking with respect to that. And also just if you have any additional comments that you want to add. And then the Data Commissioner will answer on the education on the rights to privacy for children, and also the question that has just been asked by Victor.
Thank you, Rose. I know the last question, I think, was directed at the Data Commissioner, but sitting here as a Kenyan, I think there's a gross violation of privacy there, but that's the mandate of the Data Commissioner. But going to the one's only principle, and okay, looks simplistic, but my argument would be, if you went all the organizations that you want to give you information and you are repeating the same information, that is really complicated. So what I think that instead of getting consent from all these organizations, if we employ the once only principle, consent could be obtained at that point where you are giving your information. However, the regulations under the Data Protection Act does provide for, and I think the Data Commission says she will issue guidance notes on how data can be shared. I think then that can be handled at that, given the guidance that the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner will give. Let me elaborate by giving the example of Estonia that the Data Commissioner talked about. The Estonians have got a common platform they call the X-Road. That's where you enter the digital platform for all, both government and private. And so when I talked about a framework for digitization, we need to have a framework like that. When you log in with your unique identifier for Estonia, and you go to a particular service provider or company, you are notified that a certain institution is accessing your data. So in terms of, I think, operationalizing the consent, you could maybe allow for consent to be given after somebody has entered that platform, if it was not given at the point of collecting the information. So perhaps one of the things we could do as we design our digital platforms is to alert the data subject whenever their data is being accessed by an institution that was not the one that collected their data. For me, from a policy perspective, I don't think it's a policy issue. It's an issue of implementing our digitization programs so that as we do that, we protect the personal information of our citizens. That's how I'd like to respond to that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And DC, if you just want to respond to those two questions.
The last one from Victor, it would be hard from sitting here to actually answer a question of, I don't have, it's good you brought it to our attention. It would be good to look into the issue. Yeah, but I want to state as an office, we do not condone abuse of data. That's why this office was actually established. And I keep saying, our responsibility, first and foremost, is to protect the rights of a data subject. that Kenyan who has nowhere to go if their data was breached. So it's important to give that reassurance to the public. So we will look into it, but just to emphasize in terms of procedure, it's always good when you have that kind of complaint. We have a complaint mechanism, which is available on our portal, and we also have a compliance and advisories. That is what I said. So it's good to take it up from there. But nonetheless, you've brought whatever you've to our attention. We look into it. Two, the issue of awareness in terms of children. We don't have that yet, but it's part of the things that are on the pipeline. It's something we'll be considering in the future. It's important because in data protection, we consider that as sensitive data. And it has even a higher threshold in terms of processing. For institutions that are processing, like what has been said about insurance, for children, issues of taking a data protection impact assessment is a no-brainer. It's a matter of course. If you're collecting, I wish to repeat, if you're collecting information to do with children or you're launching a new product to do with children, a data protection impact assessment, it's a matter of course. It must happen. It's a requirement under Data Protection Act because of the high risk you would subject those children if that information was actually breached. That's a new recommendation on the need to prioritize insurance and pension. What I take away from here from a guidance note are two. To first, from a policy perspective, if the guidance note on data sharing will help in terms of the e-commerce, that we'll take on board. And to the guidance note for insurance and pension, we will take that on board. Because we have 3-4 priorities, we will also take that so that we make sure they are the additional tasks that we are taking as an office. Thank you. Rose is smiling because she knows they'll land on her desk.
We have our work cut out for us. But just before Dr. John comes in, if you answer the question or you make your comments, if you could also just give a 30 minutes closing statement, and I'll have everyone on the panel do the same so that we can wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Rose. I was just to emphasize a few things Madam DC has mentioned. On the insurance, I think it's something that we had begun last year with one local insurance company. It comes down to innovation, to also promote insurance penetration. And blockchain is another tool we are working on that in that particular aspect. So it comes down to data security, which also will enhance data privacy and protection. For the gentleman who talked about his data being wherever it could be, I will try to emphasize one thing to all of us, and that's also in the program we are developing on data privacy and protection awareness. Data privacy, data protection is like the sense of touch. You can only be touched when you touch. That means wherever you go, you're creating that digital footprint. How safe is that place you are? It's a web page I've logged on. The pop-up comes up and tells you, are you going to leave this password as it is? You go to a web page, there are cookies, and you say, I accept all. You are opening yourself for everything to be collected. That ID number that you typed in, you did type in. The question is, how secure is that ID number to you? Who else knows that ID number? You should be concerned if somebody else now can type your ID number and get that information. But if I typed in that web portal, and maybe through your own reason you can remember I entered this information there, it should not worry you. It just is giving you what you gave them. But if it's someone else who's accessed that information without your consent of your password, that number, that is the worry. Now, just to finalize maybe before my closing remarks, Rose, excuse me, there's an innovation we're coming up, and we hope all this thing of owning your data can end up with every Kenyan also having what we call a My Data app. So My Data app is going to help us to see, can we be smarter online? Can we be smarter online? Be smarter when you're dealing with your personal data. Are we able to see that our data is our data and we're able to own it? Can we discover where our personal data is? As just engineer mentioned, it can alert you. My data has been accessed by somebody illegally. We all know about those guys from Kamiti who call you. Another story for another day. Can we be able to quickly understand any exposure, digital risks we have. So that's a digital something we are hoping we can develop and then maybe see if it can be able to enhance data protection. So to close my closing remarks, I'll also try to comment and say that data protection, data privacy is like a rose flower. I think most of the time we spend time looking at the stem, which has a few thorns, will prick wherever it could be. But there's a lot of beauty when you look at the flower itself. So I think if we embrace digitization, look at all the digital transformation going on, look at how you can be safe with your data wherever you are. If you're aware of your rights and you know what you're utilizing out there, there's a lot that digitization can do with our personal data out there to improve our experience. And that's what I think as a university, our role is, can our students, our staff, when they go out there, they know what really it means with my data that's up.
And thank you so much for that analogy. We'll move on to Dr. Bore. Just a brief, if it can be just one line, what your takeaway is, or what you hope the participants will take away from this session.
Well, thank you for that opportunity just to do a closing remarks. Well, what I can assure our participants is that in the healthcare sector, we are doing everything possible to protect their data. They can be assured that the data that is domiciled at KNH is safe, and we are using it for the best purpose to support training research and also continuity of treatment. And also, of course, we are continuously doing capacity building to our staff so that we continuously sensitize them on the aspects of Data Protection Act. So I think we are still on the right path. Thank you.
Wonderful, and it's good to hear. Ms. Nderi, just a quick closing remarks.
Thank you. I think from myself and the perspective of the University of Nairobi, we've heard of some suggestions which I personally think are great. One of them is use one's policy. Another one is a blockchain technology. Another one is My Data app, which can notify you when your data is being processed by an entity somewhere. I think all those are great proposals that would actually complement the data protection objective that we are trying to achieve. However, I also believe that at the foundation level, we really need to emphasize on awareness of the data subjects, because with all these overlying strategies and technologies, unless they are aware, they are probably going to be there, yes, but may not really protect them, which is the overall objective. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And just briefly, Engineer Bam, and then DC to close.
Thank you, Rose. For me, first point, 2 points. One, I think for the Office of the Data Commissioner to have become relevant only after 2 years tells us that we had a big gap in our country about how we're handling data. So I think this was a good decision by the government to do. The second point that I take away from here is what Dr. Harris said, the use of technology to ensure that we are compliant with the requirements of protection of personal information. As you may be aware, Dr. Ndemo, that you mentioned, chaired a task force that came up with a report. It was called a blockchain report, but actually it was a task force that looked at the role of emerging technologies in economic development. I was a member of that task force, and perhaps what we need to do at the ministry level going forward, perhaps look at new policies that leverage on technology to ensure that our digitization program and our digital transformation agenda as a country is based on technology, but we also comply with the protection of personal information. And perhaps that's some work that I'm giving myself going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, TC.
I've also given myself work going forward. Listening into the challenge of awareness, we are just scratching the surface, to the emerging issues around some of additional guidance notes that we've had this morning. And 3, just to reassure the members of the public and the industry players and also the panelists and people present here, as an office, we continue to be committed to ensure that there is realization of data protection, and that data protection is a centerpiece of the transformational agenda for the government and in the digital superhighway. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this closing has really elaborated the conversation that we've had, and so I will not say anything more other than to thank my wonderful panelists for participating today. It has been very insightful, and thank you for the participants with the questions that you've had, but also sitting through this discussion that is very apt and necessary to be having. Thank you.
To this conversation. It's vital, it's timely, and it involves all of us. So if we don't have it, we only have ourselves to blame. I think now this session allows us to report back on what has been discussed so that we are all on the same page. As I wait for the moderators to settle, I think it's important to also go through Twitter to see what are you saying on Twitter. If you feel your contribution wasn't captured, feel free to tweet it and I will make an effort to read it. Daniel Kimuyo says, how does ODPCKE deal with corrupt police officers colluding with bosses to intrude employee privacy, that is, confiscation of phone, in guise of conducting forensic analysis? I think that's a pertinent question that needs to be answered, and hopefully it will be answered in one of the sessions. So feel free to continue tweeting. Please tweet. I will read the questions and the comments that you share. I think it's lovely. So we will go in order of the panels. Madam Rose, I hope it's okay if I start with you to report back. Thank you very much. So the first panel we'll hear from is government's commitment to ensure compliance with data protection. Karibu, Madam Rose. We are keeping it short. We just want maximum five quick points, because we will have the report later. So just 5 points, maximum, and then we invite the next group.
Thank you all for the people who weren't in our panel. I think we've had, weren't present when we did our panel discussion. There are a number of takeaways. I think the ones with respect to government digitization is that the adoption of technology will not only help to increase efficiencies and service delivery by government, but might also be a contributor to the data protection framework. I think there's a lot of concern with respect to data sharing, and the Data Commissioner has prioritized the data sharing code, which I think is relevant, especially if we're going to have that once only touch point, the digital IDs and the like. We've also seen a lot of innovation with the education sector, seeing how academia has transferred or has used research to actually bring to market some very useful innovations and technologies that actually help particular industries. We heard about education. We've also heard about the useful innovations in the medical sector. Dr. Bore talked about what Kenyatta Hospital is doing with innovation, how it's protecting data, how it's leading in terms of ensuring that there's data sharing and ease of transfer of health data to then increase efficiencies again, but also ensure that there is increased treatment or utility when it comes to that, so that we don't have an ailing population that can easily be serviced if there was that innovation that was in place. So those are just the key takeaways. And just to quote Daktari from Strathmore with respect to the rose, you know, we look at thorns with respect to technology, but data protection actually has some beauty in it. You and I have a right to privacy. Let's see how we can utilize technology and not shy away from technology to actually enhance our right to privacy and data protection at large. Thank you.
Amazing. That was amazing. I think she deserves a clap. So it's a rose. It has flowers and it has thorns, but we must not fear the thorns. The next session was on service providers' commitment. It was in their Abadeas, moderated by Mr. Oscar Otieno. Bwana Oscar. If he's not in the room, I think we move to Key Data Handlers Commitment, and this was moderated by Dr. David Joga. Is he in the room? Okay, so I think we will reserve their contributions to the next session. For now, we are taking a break. We are taking a tea break. And then after that, it's a 1 hour break to allow us to also visit the exhibitions. I think that panel is coming back. Oh, they're coming back. So once we take the break, as we wait for them to come, once we take the break, take your refreshments, but please come back within the hour. And I have a bell. I'm sure you've heard my bell. So I'll be going round because we must reconvene here after 1 hour, but make an effort to visit the booths, the exhibition booths. They have a lot of information that we can benefit from. I told you Deloitte has a guide that we can benefit from. So I don't know whether Mr. Oscar Otieno is here. Amazing. Maximum 5.
Maximum 5, thank you so much. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, or is it good afternoon? Yes, good afternoon. My name is Oscar Otieno. I was in panel 2, where we are talking about government service providers. What came out? Basically, the data subjects want to know and learn more about consent to use their personal data. There was a general feel that government is collecting so much of people's personal data, and more of this is without consent. So we need to teach our data controllers and data processors about informing the data subjects about their rights and having consent before collecting this data. Secondly, there was a collaboration for use of data across organizations based on legal frameworks or MOUs. I was in that panel that we have our revenue collector. Revenue collector wants to get data from our telcos. There is all that kind of engagements. But before that happens, it was a general feel that there needs to be a legal framework, which is not only between the two data controllers, but this also needs to be brought out and to the data subjects so that they understand. Then thirdly, we heard about data privacy notices on websites. Most websites are collecting people's personal data without even informing them, without even having a data privacy notice on their website. So all the data controllers in this convention today, our take home is let's go back, let's sit with our ICT. If we are collecting people's personal data, let's ensure that we have data privacy notices within our various websites. Then fourth was that the institutions have the obligations to enhance privacy of the data. So this is not being shifted back to data subjects, but it is the responsibility of the data controllers to ensure that we enhance privacy of data. Then last but not least is the use of technology and complementary centers to serve those who are not tech savvy. So the discussions around that was like there is a general assumption when we are talking about data privacy, data protection, there's a general assumption that everyone is tech savvy. So we need to have and put in place complementary centers that serve those who are not tech savvy. That is the take point from panel 2. Otherwise, it was a successful one. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. I think we've had a very good day so far. We have an afternoon session that we should all be excited about. Please come back and let's discuss the micro, small, and medium enterprises economy. How can micro, small, and medium enterprises leverage on personal data to grow the economy while being compliant with the data protection legal framework? We are looking at the government perspective. The next one, the other panel, because it's still another breakout room, because we want to get maximum of solutions, challenges, everything from you as possible. The other one will be how can micro, small, medium enterprises leverage on personal data to grow their economy while being compliant with the data protection legal framework, the private sector perspective. I think this is extremely crucial, and we'll come back here and then I'll direct you on where to go. Yes, so let's be back